In this video, I wanted to talk about racks and templates and how to make your own because I've recently been sound designing and making some cool sounds and drops ideas. But the thing is, every time that I start from scratch, it usually takes way too much compared to when I use one of my racks in one of the templates that I made. But of course, maybe it's just like a little bit easier once you have that built. But in this case, I want to start building something from scratch because in my store, I do have a bunch of racks that I made a few years ago, or maybe like last year. And these have been super useful. And I don't really know how many tracks I've made by just using them because like even if I made a rack that's 2 years old, the thing is I have 80% of the setup already there. So it's gonna be a really good checkpoint and a really good starting point to me to say like, okay, this is what I have, but maybe I can update some effects, I can change some layers, and do like small tweaks, and I already know how that rack or template works, right? So it's a different way to approach sound design. And the thing is that when I was building all these templates and racks, I went through a lot of different versions. So all of that process of like, okay, this is not that good, this is not there yet, it needs work, it needs polishing, all these things. I mean, I already went through all these steps. So for example, with the bass generator, I probably made like 8 different versions of that. With the machine gun rack, same thing. With the rack from the Treasures 4 pack, same thing. So what I want to say is that with sound design, a lot of the time we struggle to make something cool right away because it's not that easy. And sometimes it's pretty confusing and overwhelming because when it comes to sound design, you can literally do anything. You can try to make a drop out of a burp if you want. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's cool to just focus on sound design sessions. Just sit down one day and say like, okay, I want to build this template or this rack where I can make my own sounds. So every time that I want to work on a new track or sound design sessions and make some loops, whatever, I already have this checkpoint. I have this starting point that's not like an init preset, and I think that's very important. I think the best thing to do would be making an instrument rack because it combines both worlds. So the MIDI side of things and the audio aspect too, because you can use sampler, which allows you to use samples or simpler if you want. So I think I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna make a rack with multiple tools such as MIDI, such as audio files and effects, and let's see how we can build something cool. So we're here now. I have this sampler right here. You can start with Serum if you want. I feel like sampler is very cool because it's a pretty flexible tool to just drop sounds into it and just together with like more effects and just other layers, like let's say it's sub and just noise, whatever you have, you can get pretty quick and good results in no time. So I'm just gonna use sampler as my MIDI, not MIDI, sorry, as my mid frequency layer. So I'm just gonna group this. So the first thing that you want to do if you want to just build an instrument rack is basically go here at a MIDI channel. I do have sampler as my default MIDI sorry, as my default MIDI channel, but you can use, I mean, it's gonna look like this if you do it. So I'm gonna grab a sampler and just boom, drop it here. And then I want to do, you can just go right click group or hit Control G, and then we have an instrument rack, right? So basically here it's where you will drop all the layers, and then you can at the end add macros. I think we can do that at the end when we build something cool. And of course you can drop individual effects for each of these chains. So this will be my mid layer for now, and this will be where I'm gonna drop all the samples, right? Then we can use maybe serum for the sub. I'm gonna use serum. This will be the sub. And I want to use one more, and this will be high, or you can consider this as noise. I feel like noise is pretty important most of the time, and it's been countless times where I feel like the bass needs something, and then by just relying on a little bit of noise plus distortion and combined with all these layers, it becomes this full version of the sound that I had before. So it's gonna go with high, and I'm pretty sure I explained this sort of like 3-layer method that I use in order to just like sound design. So sub, let's make a sub super quick. I feel like with subs, you don't really need to just overthink it too much. What I want to do with my sub is basically have a consistent fundamental where I can distort, and out of that get a lot of harmonics. Because this combined with my mid layer and my noise and everything going into distortion will create like a really good and balanced sound. Of course, I'll talk about a lot of different things when it comes to leveling things properly, because it doesn't mean that you need to just use sub like super loud and distortion super loud all the time, like just go insane, because there's this relationship between distortion and the sub that I'll explain in a minute, which is very cool, and that's one of the resources that I use the most to balance my sounds. And this also leads to mix sounds, because I feel like a big part of mix sounds stems from sound design, because if your sound design is on point, the mix sound work will be way less stressful, I guess. I mean, at the end, you can always add a bunch of things, add a bunch of EQs, and just be super precise, even like stem everything out, mix it, and master in a different session. But I feel like having a decent sound design or decent basis, even more with dubstep, is pretty cool, because it will make everything easier. And there's been some projects where I have, let's say, I don't know, this rag that I made, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's the only thing that that I have in the drop, with like maybe some background layers, samples, all the effects. But there's some projects where my sound design is not on point, and I need to just do a bunch of layers and a bunch of like tweaking, and you know, like basically go to other resources in order to just make it make sense. So sub, and I'm just gonna do just a sine wave. One thing that I like to do with my subs is add a little bit of attack. So I'm talking about pitch envelope, and you can do this with either an LFO. I guess we can do it with an LFO or envelope too. I mean, if you grab any LFO and turn it to envelope, it's pretty much the same as this, and you have a little bit more control over the shape of this envelope. So I'm just gonna do LFO 1 for now, and you can either apply this to the master tuning. So if I go here, you can apply it to main tuning, or you can go to oscillator A and say coarse pitch, right? I'm just gonna go to main tuning for now. And one thing that I like to do is, like, basically you can go in 2 ways. You can go bipolar, or you can just go up. So this means that if I go, let's say 60% here, this will just go from up to whatever note that I'm playing. So in this case, I'm playing D0, right? So if I go just up like this, this will go from whatever like value I assign to this fader to my D0 here. But if I go like this, this will go down to, I don't know what note that I'm gonna be playing. But basically this means that the middle point, the note that I'm playing, is here at the middle. So it would have to be like this. So now it's D0, but if I go like this, I can go up or down. And this is cool because sometimes with the sub, I like to just do something like, let's say, like this, and just go down a little bit here, just to add a little bit of movement and tension around the root note. But you can do it like this, or you can do it like just in one direction. So for now, you can do something like this. We'll adjust later. I just want to get something sounding nice here. And this will be pretty much my sub. I guess that you can still do like some fine tuning, but I want to get everything in the rack first, and then we can just do all the polishing process and just refining stuff, making the sub better, making the mid layer better, and continue like that. So random 0, pitch envelope, and then I want to probably mess with this. So this will be the fade in from the sub. So for now, we'll keep it like this. Now we have the mid layer, which is basically where you'll be dropping samples. And You can drop anything here. Let me just look for some of the Patreon stuff so you guys can use something similar if you want. I'm probably just gonna, I don't know if I'm just gonna be posting this rack as it is, because we can go over multiple versions, or maybe I can post the first version that I have today and then keep on updating it. So let's say we want to use for the mid layer something like this. Oh my god, I need to. The thing about this is that basically in this case I'm playing D sharp, but most of the time, since I'm just gonna be changing a lot of the layers that I'm gonna use here, the root node, you'll have to adjust it, or maybe you can even make a macro at the end and just change the transposing, because now it's D sharp, but I can probably just add, I don't know, something random, or maybe like a mud pie if you want, something like this that doesn't really have any specific root node, and you'll have to adjust it basically by ear. Okay, but for now we can just use this. And for example, I'm thinking about this mid layer, and one thing that I want to do right away is making sure that the low end is clean. So I'm just gonna drop this EQ here in the mid layer, and just for now, you know, because I don't really need any of this low end. And what about the highs? So I recently watched this video that Hammerhead posted. I highly recommend watching Hammerhead stuff because he's pretty cracked. I wrote stuff, but I need to just type Serum. So let's go with Serum, and he does, I mean, I wanted to grab Serum too. There we go. He talks about noise, and basically what he does is, instead of just using white noise like this, oh, sorry, let me just solo this like this and then distort it or something, you would get something like this, basically louder noise, but you don't really have any tonal aspect in there. It's like just a bunch of like noise, right? Does that make sense? But the thing is, he uses a saw wave for this, and this is pretty cool because if I just include a saw wave now, I have this information coming from the saw wave, and then I have the noise. So we can do something like this and have like a tonal noise, and something that, even for example, let's say I'm playing D now, but if I want to play F at any point, this will follow and will change. So it will be a pretty cool layer to just put on top of everything. So we can do it like this maybe. And he uses overdrive, so we can also try that. And at the end, I want to cut all the low end because this is supposed to be just a high layer. So, but look at the difference between this and just, right? Pretty cool. And we can still do this at the end, just to make sure that we don't have any low end. Of course, you can cut higher if you want. We'll take a look at all that in like later. You can even use more than one. So now we have this, right? Sounds a little bit unbalanced, but that's fine. We can just adjust. So what I want to do now is like, okay, I have my layers. This is like the basic idea of what I want in the sound or in the rack. And then I need to just adjust a bunch of things because, of course, these are just playing and they don't have any specific shape. So I can probably start working with the shape of each of these layers. So let's say the mid layer, you can either go here and just you know, maybe kind of like just reshape everything from here. You can also do it with like autopan, volume shaper, whatever you want to do. I guess volume shaper is pretty cool here because you can have a little bit more control over the shape that you want. So let's do volume shaper for now. But the advantage that you have with using these settings is that you can also map these and you know, create a lot of macros to just manipulate the shape of the sound. So for now, I'm just gonna go here and I'm gonna do like a basic shape like this. And this needs to be here. Oh, I guess it's, I mean, I need to just play a note. I'm just gonna go here And for now, I'm just gonna play quarter notes just to keep something going. So that's our layer, right? Super cool, pretty simple. Wait. There we go. It was just sounding weird, but now we have this. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense with the rest of the layers, so we'll still need to adjust. I'm just gonna do that, and the sub needs to do something similar to this, but I can do it with like an LFO. I can do it with an envelope. I think I'm just gonna do it with an envelope for now because, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's already here, so I'll just do it like this. Let me see if this makes sense. And also do the same thing with this one. Okay, now it's making a little bit more sense. I do want the sub playing like consistently after the first note. I don't want to just like cut it or just like turn it off like this. So that's why I keep it sustained. But now I need to just make this a little bit more interesting. So we'll go into the post-processing now. And then I'll go back into the individual processing. But for now, we're just building this rack, and then we'll just adjust every single detail. So let me just start with maybe compression and distortion. I feel like these two are always the effects that you will be using the most. And you can use them in a lot of different ways. OTT is it's the most popular effect when it comes to bass sound design. And the reason why is because OTT will compress everything and will, even if you have a massive chain of effects here, OTT will grab everything and just compress it and just make it pretty much sit here at the middle and will balance everything. The thing is, like, sometimes OTT can sound pretty different depending on where it is placed in the rack. So even if we do this right now without saturator and just OTT here, sounds like this. But now let's add saturator, and this is up with soft clip mode. Let's say we do 3D. So we have compression first. It's a compression, and then distortion. I'm just gonna call it like this so you guys can see it better. And the thing is, like, at this point, we're compressing all these 3 signals that are coming in from these, and then distorting. So that's why it gets louder. But if I just go here and use the distortion first, what I'm doing is I'm just distorting this input signal. So depending on the balance that you have here, this distortion will act differently on this input. So if we do, but you can hear that the sound is not going anywhere. It's not getting any louder because OTT is after. So that's why this is so popular, because you can make insane amount of racks with insane post-process, and then OTT will pretty much grab all that information and manipulate it in such a cool way. Because all the information that's pretty quiet that's sitting here, it's gonna get boosted, and all the information that's pretty loud sitting here is gonna get quieter, right? So you get always these super compressed sounds, and I think it's a matter of practice and just trying it, for example, here at the end, here in the middle, maybe just in the mids, a bunch of different ways to apply it and see what works best for you, but always trying to understand how it works. But now we have this, and you can hear the distortion compared to, it just sounds a little bit different, right? So we'll see what we do. We can use multiple instances of these effects. It doesn't mean that you need to just use one, and it doesn't mean that these will always be like 100%. That's something that we can also map to some macros later. So for now, I'm just gonna do this. And I think what I need to do in order to make everything just be in the same rack is basically group these. So now I have basically this instrument rack where I can include my processing chain. So this will be post process. And now with just these 2 effects, we go from to here. which is already a little bit more interesting. We'll get into all the macros and stuff later.